Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart of New York show. Today's show is very special. We're going to address a very important topic of socio-emotional learning. And to discuss this with us today is Maestro Joseph Lento. He's a licensed teacher of orchestral music and school district administration. In 2014, President Obama named him a National Teacher of Arts and Humanities. Joseph has commendations from Presidents George H.W. Bush, James Earl Carter, and George W. Bush. In 1999, he was named New York City Public Schools Bronx County High School Teacher of the Year and Lehman High School Teacher of the Year. In 2016, Maestro received a letter of commendation from Senator Charles Schumer. In 2017, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand proclaimed Joseph a maestro and cited his work in education and an example for all of New York State. And currently, Joseph's teaching music appreciation, development psychology, and in September will be teaching advanced placement music at the prestigious Maria Regina High School Academy in Hartsdale, New York. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's so good to have you back to talk about a topic here of social-emotional learning. That word alone is incredible. Says a lot, but what does it really mean?
It means doing what's best for a child. It means first taking into consideration that the students in our classes are human beings with needs, and that's something that we're really looking into now, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. And I think it's long overdue, and I'm happy that this movement has started, and really happy to discuss it with you today.
Okay, now, we define social and emotional learning as an integral part of education and human development, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So it's the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes towards development healthy identities, manage emotional and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and they show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. That alone is loaded with stuff to talk about.
Yeah, well, it is, and that comes from the American Psychological Association, which I'm proud to say I'm a member of its organization, Top Teachers of Psychology in Secondary Schools. We actually recently had the Assistant Director for Education in the entire United States, Emily Chesness, come in to visit with my students in Maria Regina High School this past May via Zoom. And the American Psychological Association couldn't be more right about it. I mean, it's chock full of everything that you need to know about what could be right with our education system and what should be right with it.
But to sum it up in two sentences, what does that really mean?
It means that we take into consideration the human being that are our students, and how we can best educate them through appealing to their basic needs and their educational needs. You know, this is an old topic that has been used in psychology for more than 100 years. You know, we get to teach it in developmental psychology, but, you know, we have something called the Maslow pyramid, and it basically is 5 steps, and it discusses all of the needs that we have in order to be ultimately realize our fullest potential. So if you have a student that comes into our classroom and we're not meeting their basic desire to, let's say, just be safe, that they can feel free to ask a question and not feel ridiculed because they think it might be seen as silly. There's never any question that's silly. Ask it. So I mean, in that regard, are we meeting the basic needs of our students when they first come in? Do they feel safe in the environment to learn, to open their minds, to be free to engage in conversations, so we can get them to these higher levels that experience shows they should explore, right? But no one's going to do anything if they don't feel valued, if they don't feel welcome. Do you do anything if you don't feel welcome?
Exactly,
Peter?
exactly.
I don't feel, if someone's not welcoming to me, I turn off. That's a basic human reaction. And as educators, do we stop and think how many people we're turning off that day, or are we just worried about covering the curriculum? We have teachers who say there's not enough time for classes, we need more, et cetera. I never felt that there was not enough time to cover any material if my students were on board with me.
Now, in your class, when the students are on board with you, and what you're saying is really fascinating, but do you try and figure or identify or understand each and every individual student that you have?
Well, this is part of the whole socio-emotional
Right.
learning. That's a great question, Peter. Well, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. So you have to be observant. And again, if you've never taught in a classroom, teachers have an extraordinarily difficult job. And I'm not meaning to say that this is something that can be easily done, but it's something that you have to gear your mind toward and do it a little bit at a time. Because, by the way, socio-emotional learning, the other component of that is, and we'll talk about it, the needs of our teachers as human beings. Because if those are met, then chances are, and the research shows it, we can look it up in the American Psychological Association, that the more connected the teacher is with their children, often is a sign of how satisfied they are at work. Not always, because some people can transcend things, right? But so that's part two of this conversation today. So when I know all my students, we can do more together. And you have to create an environment in which the students are willing to help each other. Everything starts, we say things start from the top. They often start from the bottom. You have to treat everyone with as much respect as everyone else. And that's part of this socio-emotional learning. It really encompasses the whole human being. We go back to many, many years ago. Frederick Herzberg was another psychologist of the 20th century, came up with a two-factor process to see if you were happy, motivational factors and what they call hygiene factors. And there's nothing to do with taking a shower or anything like that. But, again, do you feel safe at work? Do you feel, is your room, conducive to working? Is there a window? Is there some sense of, hope and prosperity? The way a room looks is a big part of how we respond, right? And then, of course, well, do you feel like the work you're doing is respected? Is it valued? Is there room for improvement? Do you get commendations for it? What's going to make you do better? Well, our kids are the same way. I mean, that's a model that they use in business to try and make businesses successful. Well, we should take that model and use it in schools for our how and our kids.
How are some of the ways that your needs are met as a teacher, as a maestro?
Just being with the kids. I have to be honest with you, and that's not a thought-about answer. Just my needs are met when I'm put in a classroom and have the ability to work with young people. That's really all I need. But that's me. Now, that doesn't mean that over the years I've not been dissatisfied with things or wanted, better hygiene factors or better, motivational factors. But always working with the kids is my main goal. That gets me through everything. But that doesn't mean it's enough for everybody. And to tell you the truth, over the 40 years I've been blessed to teach. Some days it wasn't always enough for me, but I shrugged it off. But that's my personality.
What does the research say about socio-emotional learning and education? What does the research say about that?
It says that when students' needs are met on all these various levels, that they succeed. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. And by the way, I know we have limited time, but for those of you who are watching, all of the information we have, I can make available to you and give you all the different resources and informational sites and numbers. You can get that just by sending me an email. We'll have that.
We'll have that.
And so you can have all those numbers and things where, again, we have a limited amount of time, but there are organizations I can direct you to and numbers. And again, I'm more than happy to answer free of charge any questions you have about what we're talking about today.
That's wonderful. And take advantage of that. We'll have his email up on the screen at various times so you can write it down and get in touch with this man that really has changed his world where he is with the students, and he loves it, and it comes from his heart. Now, the next thing I like to do, Maestro, is this emotional dynamic that is just being discovered. Is it just being discovered, or can you give us some historical perspective? Is there any one like this, or one?
Well, as we already see by Maslow and Herzberg,
Right.
This has been discussed formally for over a century. It's now being put into the classrooms because more and more we're realizing that we have to address the needs of people. Otherwise, they're not going to be motivated to do anything. And why there's been this big delay, it just speaks to education in general. Most people look at a classroom, and unless all the students are perfectly quiet and sitting perfectly still, and you have a teacher talking and kids writing, that's learning. I have news for you. That's not the best learning. It has its place, but it's by far not the best learning. Has it suited people over the years? Well, it's gotten people to graduate. Is there real information on knowing if that's transferable? Is it used when they get outside? Chances are no. We need a combination. So it's important that now the education field is catching up to the psychology field, which, by the way, are one and the same. Education and psychology are one and the same. We need to get the public to think differently about what education looks like. We need administrators to think differently about what education looks like. We need testing to be different than what it looks like. And, you know, I'm working on an endeavor on that right now that hopefully I'll be able to share with you in the future.
Oh, boy, absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, children have a way of sensing these things. I mean, I remember in school, I remember in grammar school, in PS 30, okay, how they were, the teachers, how people called it at that time, PS 30, the Harvard of grammar schools for public schools. I had teachers that cared. I remember they would just reach out to certain, I remember this as a youngster and how powerful it was and how some of them encouraged me and helped me catapult to my dreams. And that's how important it is with a man like this. That's how important it is to implement it in the schools, because kids are so emotional. So when I went to grammar school in PS 30, I had the greatest teachers there. You know, like I said, it was the Harvard of grammar schools in the public system, and they cared, and they really helped, and they encouraged me, and I can actually remember this, and I can actually see them help and encourage other students in their different abilities, as this gentleman is talking about. They had a way of of sensing what this student needed and what that one needed and what that one needed. And it makes all the difference in the world. And the encouragement does. It helped catapult me into the dreams that I had when I was a youngster, to doing them in my life. And this is what he wants to get back into the schools. More schools. It's already in his. You've been doing it for 40 years and been a success at doing it.
Well, you know, Peter, it's of course we all have, and your stories, it's, you know, beautiful memories, and all of us have teachers that have done that for us. And you know, sometimes when we are in these situations, we kind of paint with a broad brush, and I'm not meaning to imply that our teachers don't, but as an actual part of the curriculum, where it is something we focus on, this is now something all teachers have to do, because we all have those standout teachers, right, that did this and that. But we also have had the teachers who we didn't have that impact from. What we're now understanding is that we need all of our educators to be impactful. We need all of our educators to take into account the student as a human being, so we can reach them. Now, will we all be successful? No, it doesn't work that way. But we now have to try, so we don't have isolated instances of that, but where we can say, you know, wow, all my teachers really cared about me. All my teachers cared about what I was doing. They bothered to ask me how I was feeling, what I was doing beyond the curriculum. Because if you want to teach your subject, you have to know your kids. When you know your kids, they'll learn, they'll listen to what you have to say, they will enjoy it because they feel valued, they believe you care. And we also have to get our teachers to be treated in the same way, so they feel they're valued. If they feel they're valued, they're going to carry that into the classroom. So we have to take the Maslow, we have to take the Herzberg, we have to take the Dewey and Rogers, we have to take all these people, and we have to treat each other with care. We have to make sure that we treat each other, that our emotional needs are met, so we can become a better society.
And you see, it really takes, it starts with the teacher, starts with the professor, starts with the maestro. It comes from the heart. But you know what it reminds me? Some of the things, because this worked for troubled kids and non-troubled kids. I mean, you get me thinking about the old show, Welcome Back, Kotter. And I'm saying how he came in and he got these boys from tough neighborhoods and all that, and helped turn them around and care. And that's what I see you doing, not for only those particular students, but for all. But you can't, as far as I know, a teacher, he's got to have that in his heart. And you have that in your heart. So how are we going to get this in other teachers' hearts?
Well, everything starts with the beginning. So if we take step one, we can encourage people by seeing the outcome, right? And we have to be more generous to our teachers. We have to show them we care more about them, because, ladies and gentlemen, they're teaching our children. How much more important can that be? And that when they feel secure and they feel valued, they will then be much more open to doing this with the students, as opposed to just saying, well, we're going to measure you by how well your students scored on a multiple choice quiz. That's, anybody could do that.
Anybody could do that.
And it means nothing, really.
Anybody
could
do that.
You know, you use the show Welcome Back, Kotter. One of the things, we were talking off air, Peter and I talk a lot off air, about sharing your experiences. So when you want to make students feel secure, you want to build them up, you want to get them so they can self-actualize. You want to take, you have to know your audience, and you have to know what to share with them. And I was sharing with you some stories I shared when I was in certain schools, because it related to the students. They knew I understood because I experienced what they experienced. So right there, we're building safety. they feel safe with me. They know that they can speak to me. That's part of the pyramid, you know.
That leads me into
Yes,
discussing Maslow's pyramid.
yes. Well,
What's that all about?
it's basically, it's a five sequence study. And Peter, if you look on on either side, if you want, this is a pretty modern version. By the way, I'll make all of this available to you, no charge. You'll see what we're doing. But if you look, Peter, on the left, it basically talks about very basic needs. Would you mind reading a couple of those, Tara? And starting on the left.
Okay, food, rest, shelter.
Perfect.
Right.
If a student doesn't have good shelter, if they're hungry, well, what do you think they're going to do that day in your classroom? Not too much,
That's right.
Not too much.
That's right.
Not too much.
That's right. Protection against danger, poverty, fair treatment.
So if a student knows that they have these challenges, but they know you will be fair with them in your classroom, that begins to transcend the fact that they might be in trouble, because they know here's fairness. I can get a fair shake in this room,
Right.
which will lead to other good things, hopefully.
Friendship, a sense of belongingness to a team.
How simple is it to say good morning to every student that comes into your classroom? And not just,
What does it take? 2
takes
seconds?
nothing.
Yeah.
How are you? Look into their eye. Ask them how they were. Remember something that they told you and say, hey, did you watch that show?
Yeah.
Did the Yankees win? Something. We can do it.
That's right. That's right. Having status and recognition, achievement, and independence.
So if a student knows that you're going to give them a nice word, and you're going to say, those shoes are really nice. I like your tie. I like your hair. Something nice. Or when's your birthday? I keep a birthday drawer.
Right.
So whenever it's a student's birthday, they get to come up to the birthday drawer
Right.
and choose from a special stash of goodies I have. Things like that. Compliment them. Just always say, you know what? It's so nice to have you in my class. Thank you.
Now, when we're going through the things on the pyramid here, what you're saying is this opens them up to learning more?
Well, Peter, that's great. Let's throw the question to our audience.
Right.
When you feel valued and you know someone respects you, they care about you, even if it's just to say, hey, did you watch the game last night?
That's right.
How much more are you going to do in that situation? A lot.
Right.
A lot more. That's just human nature.
So then the students will actually want to come in and they want to learn. Tell me more.
Yeah. Look,
Right.
I have students who come in, and the first things we'll do in the beginning, we might talk about the Yankee game. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
You're going to get to the lesson. By the way, I still think there's too many minutes in a period to teach what we have to teach. I know my teacher friends will say that's not so, but when you have students and you have a relationship, that learning comes very easily. It comes quickly, especially if you know how to change your modalities and things like that. But that's what it takes. It takes all those trusting things. So, in the business world, they try to make people feel good. They have a coffee station. They have something for them. They have a magazine room. Everything to make someone feel better about doing a better job. Our schools lag far behind in that. I'm sorry. I think after 40 years, I'm entitled to say that.
I think people know that.
Not all of them. I work in a wonderful school where, at Maria Regina High School, they're amazing there. They're a model. And people will say, well, we have this problem, we have that problem, we can't do it. It all starts with a kind word. It takes no money to give a kind word. It takes no money to remember that someone loves, a certain band or a song or whatever it may be. It doesn't cost any money for that.
That's right.
That's where you build the trust, the safety, the wanting to explore knowledge. And that's what a school is about. It's a place to explore knowledge.
Right.
So we can take it and use it on the
That's right.
outside.
And what's
right?
amazing is it doesn't cost anything, like you said. And how long
Nothing.
does it take? Seconds to talk about a game? Or a couple of minutes? But you see, the thing is, when you do that, You got to really do it from your heart, like this man does, because students have a way of saying, "Oh, you don't really care," right?
Oh, they'll know. Students, you can't
You can't fool them.
You can't fool a
You
kid.
can't fool them.
You can't fool a kid. And this is where we need our parents and our administrators to be on board with that. Don't
it.
look at education
That's
the
right.
same way you were taught.
Right.
It doesn't have to look that way. There's nothing wrong. And by the way, I know, things that they don't even teach anymore because I'm so old now, in terms of a developmental lesson plan, and I could cite a chapter and verse and by rote, but you have to be able to break away from that and show that you can do all the things and include the socio-emotional learning in there. It's so important that we do that, and we need our administrators and our parents to give the teachers more creativity. Be on board with it.
Right.
Look into it. There are models we've discussed like Dewey and many others. We need to reframe education, and the socio-emotional learning component is beginning to do that. And people will think, oh, you're just addressing needs of kids who will not behaved well. That's nonsense. It's not true. It's not true. It's important that we have all the kids included so we don't have those behavioral issues anymore.
That's right. That's right. So, if we follow Maslow's pyramid for students, is there a guide we could follow for teachers, or does the Maslow pyramid apply to them also?
I think both the Maslow and the Herzberg model, the two hygiene factor applies. It's very simple. Value people, make them feel safe, relate to them so they feel safe. We all need to be interconnected. The more interconnected we are, the more we'll do for each other, the better our society will become. Will it be perfect? No. But it can be much better than what it is right now.
You mentioned the Herzberg. Explain a little bit more for them.
He basically had a two-factor setup. Hygiene factors like, is your room nice? Is there a window in it? Do you get sunshine in
Right.
it? Is there a place where you can go get a cup of coffee? And then motivational factors. If I do a better job, can I get a raise? Will I get recognized? Will I win an award? That's very simply put, but those are important things. That's why we have to do that for teachers. And by the way, let's do it for our administrators too. They're not, they have a really hard job. And let's
Sure.
thank our parents once in a while. Send a note home once in a while saying, I'm just writing to say thank you for letting me be your student's teacher, your child's teacher. How nice
Simple
is
little
that?
thing like
It's so
that could
simple.
change someone completely.
We need to help each other. We're not enemies. This should not be a combative thing. And so social emotional learning is bringing that to the forefront, and it's also including students who were heretofore kind of left on the margins.
Right.
And no student should be left on the margins, ever.
Maestro said it all. Schools are a fountain of hope. A fountain of hope. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.